things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast here live on location from actually my old house. So the sound may be a little bit different. The background may be a little bit different, but it was very close to Amalie Arena. So I had to make sure that I was back in a place where I had Wi-Fi. I wasn't able to make it all the way home, but I am here right now with you. So that explains why the time change and also why things look a little bit different and maybe sound a little bit different today on the program. Follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Also, like and subscribe on YouTube. I've been trying to get closer to 1,000 subscribers. I think we're almost 10 people away. So if you can let somebody know, your dentist, your mailman, your neighbor, your best friend, your cousin's sister's third grade teacher, let them know. Subscribe to the Recher podcast. We're going to be live every single day. Again, wasn't able to do noon today, so 1 p.m. here with you for the next hour and a half or so. Why wasn't I here? Why wasn't I on time? Because I was at Amalie Arena for the annual fireside chat with Lightning General Manager Julien BriseBois. Some really great information. You're starting to see some of that stuff trickle down right now from a bunch of my colleagues there, whether it's Lightning team reporter Gabby Shirley or team beat writer, our guy Ben Pierce. I know Ed Encina did a great job, as well as Eric Erlinson and D'Angelo and Tom Layberger and Corey Long. Like the whole crew was there. Dave Mishkin was there, as well as John Romano from the Tampa Bay Times at 2 p.m. today. So an hour from now, I'm going to give you everything that Julien BriseBois had to talk about today on the show during our chat, including things like, why is Nikita Kucherov playing so much? And did it have anything to do with him not being in the Four Nations? Also, what are the Lightning's focus as we get closer and closer to the March 7th NHL trade deadline? He's also in charge, or one of the people in charge for Team Canada. We have some stuff there, some information as well. So at 2 o'clock today, we're going to talk all things Tampa Bay Lightning. Julien BriseBois, what did he have to say from his annual fireside chat? I'll give you detailed logistics and kind of feedback of what I got, what I gleaned from the entire conversation as well. We're going to talk a lot of football today as well, and our guy Ian Beckles is going to join us at 1:15. Man, what two games that are just, you couldn't take your eyes off them for two different reasons, but the Super Bowl matchup is set. The Philadelphia Eagles will represent the NFC and the Kansas City Chiefs, the AFC. So we'll have a rematch from what we saw a couple of years ago. So we'll get into that here momentarily. I want to hear from you. Thaw, thank you so much. Geo's Bolts ring, big opportunity for Bolts to make a move on this same homestand. It'll be great to see them back at Amalie Arena for 5 games here. David Terry, Jaybird, happy Monday, bro. Same thing to you. How about them Redbirds of Liverpool? Man U 1-2, so I can't be upset about that. Definitely got to turn things around with the Bolts. 1-3 on the last road trip. Not good. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them there at the bottom of the screen. Again, follow me on all social media platforms as well. And as my guy Buckin says, drop a like if you can. Hit that like button. Boom, boom, boom. And subscribe. Every like, every subscription certainly helps. And if you follow me on social media, that does a wonders as well. Ian Beckles, I mentioned, is going to join us at 1:15. Tomorrow, we're going to hopefully get a hold of Chris Russell from up there in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., see what he has to say. Of course, Eric Erlinson, Ed Encina are going to join us as well. Talking to the Tampa Bay Lightning, hopefully going to get Nick Paul here on in a couple of weeks. And I know we do have head coach for the USF football team, Alex Golish, joining us on February 11th. So a lot of irons in the fire. The Recher podcast is just going to continue to grow, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So can't wait for you guys to be able to see everything that we have in store. You guys are the best. All right, let's start with the games over the weekend. And to be honest, I I was 1-1. I thought Washington was going to be able to upset Philly, but it just didn't work out that way. And I picked the Chiefs over the Bills, even though I know a lot of Buffalo fans out there were not too happy with that one. But we'll get to the AFC here in a moment. I want to start with the NFC. And when you look back at this game, 55-23, so look at the Eagles put up 55 points on the Washington Commanders. As much as you want to look at Washington saying, all right, well, they were a young team and a rookie quarterback, I came away giving a lot more credit to Philadelphia than saying, oh, Washington wasn't ready. The Eagles, man, they are firing on all cylinders right now. And it starts at the top. And it starts with the guy that they went out and got in the offseason, and Saquon Barkley. Barkley is having the legacy-defining performance you only really see from quarterbacks. You know, you think of the Joe Flaccos and the Eli Mannings, and I'm not talking about Peyton and Tom Brady and Mahomes. Yeah, of course, their legacies are defined by the championship. I'm talking about in one season, regular season, postseason, a guy that is defining his legacy. Usually it's a quarterback because he has so much control of what goes on. Maybe you'll see a standout defensive player, but at the end of the day, he can still contribute and doesn't always show up on the stat sheet. You look at what Saquon Barkley has been able to do for this Philadelphia Eagles team. And I don't know if we've ever seen a non-quarterback have this type of impact. And you go back to the regular season, number one in the league for most carries with 345, led the league in rushing 2005. He had 13 touchdowns, averaging 5.8 yards per carry. And then, in the passing game, 33 grabs for 278 and 2 touchdowns. Oh, no, wait, it doesn't stop there, because you look what he's been able to do in the postseason so far. So far this postseason, in 3 games, he's run for 442 yards and 5 touchdowns, another 7 catches for 35 yards. Saquon is the guy that has really put this team into a dangerous category of who do you stop, pick your poison. Even then, I don't know if it matters. He has been incredible since the Philadelphia Eagles brought him over. Now, I said this last week, and I'll say it again. Teams should not go out there thinking that the running back is the last piece of the puzzle, because what they had in place was a really, really good offensive line that is coached phenomenally, 2 weapons on the outside with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, the tight end and Dallas Goedert, and a stud at the quarterback position with Jalen Hurts. So I don't know if teams out there are going to go start running into free agency going, man, if we have a running back, everything is going to be fantastic. No, it's not like that. But Saquon is special. And some person says Saquon was the 2nd overall pick. Should be no surprise. But it is, though. It is that he would have that much of an impact in the regular season and the postseason, to the point where this team is now 1 win away from the Super Bowl. And for a guy like Saquon Barkley, where you're playing a position where guys at his age, really, it's a precipitous fall off that cliff. He has been so freaking good for this team. And his performance, again, you don't see these legacy-defining type of performances from guys that aren't quarterbacks. Legit. Jalen Hurts looked like Jalen Hurts. They took the training wheels off. Dude was fantastic. You look at his stats, to be able to run in 3 touchdowns. That is what Jalen Hurts, when he's at his best, that's what he does. Washington couldn't afford to commit any turnovers. They played they played a perfect brand of football against the Bucs and the Lions. Squeaky clean. They couldn't afford to do that against Philadelphia. They had to play flawless. They didn't do it. 3 lost fumbles, and it's just such an uphill climb. And I think we forgot just how good Philadelphia is. It seems like they lost the benefit of the doubt. It seems like after losing the Super Bowl and then what happened last year, how they started out so strong and then they just petered out down the stretch. They got rid of their coordinators. They lost in the first round to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We remember that game at Raymond James Stadium. But it seems like people just forgot about that. People were just like, it was waiting. All right, prove it to me again. Prove it to me again. Even myself, I didn't know if Jalen Hurts looked right. And I was kind of riding the Washington train. But when you look at this team on the offensive side of the ball, they built their team the right way, in the trenches, from the inside out. They have a multitude of guys on the defensive line that can get after the quarterback, rotate guys in. They have young players. They drafted a couple of corners who stood out in a big way. Look at the grab by Mitchell last night, going one-on-one with Terry McLaurin. Guys go down like Nakobe Dean. Ballin steps up. What a great free agent pickup that was. Howie Roseman, that guy struck gold everywhere in the offseason. And now, again, they're representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. So kudos to the Eagles. You got to take your hat off to them. I know it sucked for Washington fans out there, but listen, probably didn't think you were going to get this far in the rookie season of Jaden Daniels, and you did. You went up against a better team. You tip your hat and you move on. The night game, just another classic between these two teams. And you look at Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and you have to marvel at how good that they've been in this time frame. And your heart goes out to Bills Mafia and all those fans out there. And I know today is going to be one of those days where people look at the refereeing and, oh, the Mahomes and the Chiefs, they get all the calls. I said this last week, and I'll say it again. When you're that good, it happens. And you have to make sure that if you beat this team, you beat them, and there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That same Chiefs team, regardless of what their offensive line looked like, went against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl, and the Bucs squashed them. It wasn't even close. They didn't even give the referees a chance to affect the outcome of the game, as some of you were saying. But let's put things in perspective too, right? The Buffalo Bills missed 2 2-point conversions. You get both of those, you win this game. The fourth down play, where people were wondering, did he get over the line? I think a lot of people today are saying, how could you not see that? But even watching it, remember, there's a slightly off angle when you're looking at the camera. It was close. It was close. And especially when Josh Allen turns, he's got his back to the first down marker. And I knew as soon as the call in the field was he was short, they weren't going to overturn it. There was no legitimate evidence. You couldn't see it. We could assume, and we can try to put it together and say, all right, well, it looked like it. And I think if you had to lean one way or the other, you'd probably say he probably made it. But once the call in the field is the way it is, without the shadow of a doubt, you got to be able to give that clear, concise evidence that the call in the field was wrong. And they didn't have that. But if you have Josh Allen, right, in that offense, take the refs out of it, you got to get a yard. You got to make it so that it's undeniable. Every single time that the Philadelphia Eagles need to get a yard with the tush push or the brotherly shove, they get it. They get 1.5 yards, 2 yards every single time. There's rarely a doubt if they got it or not. Unfortunately for the Bills, you leave it to be that close. You kind of leave it in the referee's hands there. And you can't slay the beast with a technicality. You can't hope and pray for help and that you get close enough. You got to chop the head of the beast off. And they didn't do it. You needed to stop at the end of the game. You gave up 2 first downs. You gave up a first down to Samaje Perine, their third best running back, at the end of the game. You get off the field on 3rd down. You put the ball back in Josh Allen's hands. Maybe you have a chance to tie the game or win it. Too many variables for the Buffalo Bills in that game. They didn't clearly get robbed. They weren't clearly the better team. They made some mistakes. Dalton Kincaid, I know the play was kind of crazy with Josh Allen on that 4th down, rolling out to his right, all bunch of pressure in his face. A great job by Steve Spagnuolo putting the heat on him. But he rolls to the right there, chucks the ball up in the air, and Dalton Kincaid doesn't come down with it. It's the finest of margins when you get to the playoffs. It may not be fair, but that's life. And that is the NFL. When it's a 1-score game, when you lose 32-29, sometimes you have to make that catch that nobody thought you were going to make. Sometimes you have to stretch a half yard to make sure that there's, without a shadow of a doubt, a first down in your favor. Buffalo didn't do that. There were a couple of throws, too, that Josh Allen had in that game where, and I know one of them, there was a flag on the field for holding, but we were giving him the benefit of the doubt when we were watching the game yesterday. There's a couple of throws where we kind of just chucked it up to Keon Coleman, like, F it, Keon's out there. I don't know if he's at that level yet. It's a rookie wide receiver out of Florida State. Good player. Maybe that works in the regular season. But when you're going up against a veteran defense with the Kansas City Chiefs, you can't just throw the ball into coverage and think that, oh, it's okay, Keon's going to come down with it. Early on in that game, especially in that first drive, there were 2 plays where Kansas City could have came up with an interception against Josh Allen, and they didn't do it. So it wasn't like he took care of the ball and made every decision correctly, but still, I thought he did. He played well, but you can't just play well if you're going to dethrone the king. And now, Super Bowl matchup next Sunday, not this one coming up, but the following, Chiefs and Eagles. That is going to be a good one. Let's bring him in, the one and only, the dignitary, Ian Beckles. Ian Beckles. We gotta get Chris or Ponzo to look in the change.
Yeah. Why is it? I don't know, dude. At least my phone is the right way, though.
Hey, you're off center though. You got to move over a little bit. Move over.
Hey, baby steps, my friend. Let's not mess with too much right now. You know what I'm saying? Let's not do all that.
Man. So it was good to hang out with you yesterday watching these games. Let's start with the first game. I think one of the big takeaways from the Eagles-Commanders game, we kind of just looked at each other when it was close to the end. We go, Philadelphia's just really good, right? And I feel like because of how the season ended last year, and everybody was kind of waiting for them to fail again. But Ian, they're in the Super Bowl, and you and I talk about it a lot. It's like they're strong in the trenches. They got good players on the outside. Like, this is a really good football team, and it's kind of weird that it took for them to get to the Super Bowl for a lot of people to acknowledge it.
Well, what you said about the Buffalo Bills and bizarre world is the Philadelphia Eagles. If you have 2 yards to go, they get those 2 yards. Mm-hmm. I mean, there ain't nothing you can do about it. They're going to tell you what they're going to run it in your face, and at the end of it, they're going to get a first down or a touchdown. The Eagles are really good up front on both sides of the ball, dude. I mean, really, really good. The Carter, he made a couple moves yesterday. We were watching the game with Tony Mayberry. I saw him lined up on the center and make a move on the guard and club the guard and beat the guard outside on his edge. And I said, I don't think I've ever seen that in my life. So they have some special players, and they don't turn the ball over. It kind of, that's what it comes down to. Washington didn't play that poorly. I didn't think they were outmanned. But when you put the ball on the ground 3 times on the road, you're never going to win a championship game, never. And some of it, is, if you're a Washington fan right now, you're like, damn, we fumbled. But those were great plays by Eagles. That the peanut punch is a new thing in the NFL. It's like and the Eagles do it really well. They did a good 2 times in that game, so they practice it all the time. So that's the reason. That's why they win.
And Jalen Hurts to be able to run the football, I was just mentioning before you hopped on with Saquon Barkley. Ian, I don't know if any non-quarterback has ever had a legacy-defining season like Saquon Barkley. He's not going to change how teams address the running back position. The guys they're not going to go out there and go, let's go pay this 28, 29, 30-year-old. It's not that aspect of it. But when you watch what Saquon is doing, it just makes you marvel at how athletically gifted and talented this guy is. I know you've been high on him for a while, but to be able to watch him join up a team that puts such an onus on running the football and being strong with the trenches and the season that he's had, not just the postseason, but the regular season. Like, this is, if they win the Super Bowl, and let's say he wins the MVP, this may go down as one of the greatest seasons that we've ever seen from an individual player in NFL history.
Well, I don't think the NFL is going through a metamorphosis by any, state of their mind. But if you look back to the Super Bowl, how many of the, in the last 30 years, Super Bowls were won by running the football, by running backs? I would have to go all the way back to Terrell Davis. I mean, Really. All the rest of it seems to be won by quarterbacks. If Philadelphia wins, they're going to win through Saquon Barkley. And I believe Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley are both Hall of Fame running backs. But here's the thing, and I've said this to you many times, and a lot of people out there. If you're not a Hall of Fame running back, you're just a dime a dozen. Very few running backs tote the pill for 3 straight years, and if you do, you probably end up going into the Hall of Fame. Saquon Barkley did this, then he did this, and now the trajectory, I don't know where it's going, but I didn't know he was this good. I knew he was good, and I knew, he was tough, and I think he's a different running back than he was early in his career. He was more of a bruiser. Now he make a catch miss and go 60 with it. And, watching that first run, everybody was impressed by Saquon Barkley. Go back and watch it. He gets touched once, and he doesn't get touched till he's 12 yards down the field. That's not. I mean, he is great, but that's O-line play. And if the Eagles win, it's going to be because their O-line is so damn good. Their center being hurt may be a big deal. Number 51 who went in there wasn't quite the same, but the Eagles are really good on both sides of the ball.
What does that tell you when a guy like Mekhi Becton, high draft pick, a left tackle drafted by the Jets, they could have had Tristan Wirfs. They picked Mekhi Becton instead. he slides inside the guard and he's just absolutely mauling people. When you watch the Philadelphia offensive line, what are those guys coached up to do that's so different than other players and other lines in the league, where regardless of who it is, I mean, Ian, Jason Peters isn't there anymore. Jason Kelsey's not there anymore. Like, they're able to just cycle guys in. Take a guy like Jordan Mailata, who's a freaking rugby player. Yeah. Now he's one of the best tackles in all of football. Like, what do you see from them that makes you go, they're being taught the right way, and that leads ultimately to their success?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, Jay. Some things aren't rocket science. Really, some of it isn't, okay? I played the same position as Mekhi Becton, okay? If Mekhi Becton walked in the same room as me, we wouldn't look like the same animal, right? He makes that right guard position look very, very easy with his lengths, and he's just so big he can't get around. I mean, I held my own, but to be 6'7", 350 makes things a little bit easier. So the Eagles have found 4 monsters that are wonderful athletes and have good feet. So whoever's evaluating their trench play needs to be applauded. Now, you know what? Jason Licht needs to be applauded too. While we're into that, you know, Jason Light's done a pretty damn good job of putting this offensive line together with some high draft picks, some not so high draft picks, some free agents, guys moving positions. And I thought our offensive line was as good as can be this year. But that Philadelphia Eagle offensive line, it's just a good line, bro. I mean, everybody wants to put on Jalen Hurts and Saquon, but that offensive line makes their job real easy.
Let's talk about the other game, Chiefs and Bills. And, man, you got to feel for Josh Allen and Bills Mafia today. They're so close. Once again, they lose by 3 points. The difference in that game was what, Ian?
The difference in that game, I think, is a little bit of a confidence thing. One team is confident at the end of the game, and one team is hoping they get it done. Because every time the Bills and Kansas City play, it ends the same damn way. Mm-hmm. It's the same way. I mean, at the end of the game, everybody's going to hope that Josh Allen gets it done. Right. At the end of the game, they know Mahomes is going to get it done. Why? Because he's done it every single time. So when you have Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes or, you know, John Elway or Joe Montana on your side, and on the last drive of the game, Joe Montana goes, "Hey, there's John Candy." I mean, there's in the other end of the spectrum, you know, we heard of Donovan McNabb throwing up in the huddle. Okay, the moment could be too much for you. Josh Allen is a superstar. All right, I didn't think he threw the ball that well yesterday. He's a superstar. But Mahomes makes the throws. Josh Allen missed a couple throws. And as a whole, their offensive line got overpowered by a much bigger defensive line. And I said to everybody, if you bet against Kansas City, you're crazy. And then I bet against Kansas City and lost money.
Oh, boy.
But I couldn't listen to my own words. But if anybody can beat this Kansas City team, it's the way Philadelphia is built. That being said, I'm not sure which way I'm going yet.
And why do you say that?
Well, the only way to beat Kansas City is not get into a knockout, drag out, shootout. Is to bludgeon them and soften them up, okay? Chris Jones, if you have to throw the ball all game long, Chris Jones is a problem. If you can run the ball on Chris Jones, he doesn't want to play the run. He doesn't want to. He does, but he doesn't want to. This Eagle front, when you have Mekhi Becton leaning on you, sometimes everybody thinks it's about, oh, we had 200 yards rushing. Nope. If you got 40 rushes, that defensive front slows their ass down. The pass rush is not there anymore. They're sitting down and they're hunkering down for a run. It slows everything down. So sometimes it's the ability to be able to keep on running the ball. And if you look at the statistics, and I never looked at that, I'm sure that you can find it somewhere. If a team rushes the ball 30 times, I bet they win 80% of the time. You should look that up.
So do you think it's more of the offense of what they can do, or what the defense can do against Patrick Mahomes, slowing him down? Because as much as we look at that side of the ball, being able to run the football, I think part of the defense is keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field. But you gave us what the Philadelphia offense would have to do. But what would the Philadelphia defense have to do to be able to combat what Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs do so well in such a high-profile game? Because we remember the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, it was a shootout. Jalen Hurts played fantastic, but the Eagles could not slow down Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense.
Sure, not too far from here. the Buccaneers came up with a template to really thwart Mr. Mahomes for the only time in the history of his short career. And once again, not rocket science. You got to get after the cat, man. You got to make him uncomfortable. The Buccaneers won that game from their defensive line. If you go back and watch the game, and I've rewatched that game, that Super Bowl game, it's not close. Patrick Mahomes is by far the best football player on that field. It's not close. He was Superman. He made some plays, and he just wasn't bailed out by a lot of his receivers. Yesterday, Josh Allen could have been bailed out by McCall. I heard you talking about Kincaid. I mean, those kind of things can bail you out of some situations, and it's about teams making plays. And I don't want to hear about referees. I don't want to do it. That talk to me is old, and everybody who loses can complain about two plays. Every single team. So I don't want to hear about it. Kansas City wins because Kansas City makes plays at the end, and they have Patrick Mahomes. That's why they win.
Yeah, and we also saw one play yesterday where Kansas City got screwed on a call in that false start play when you were like, I think the defensive player moved first. And then when they showed the replay, it was a classic, neutral zone infraction where the offensive lineman jumped and they called it on Kansas City.
Sure.
But nobody talks about that the day after.
Well, the long and short of it is that, they're talking about the fourth and one, I believe, where they look like they got it,
Right.
they didn't have it, and obviously the reception where the ball touched the ground. Well, those were terrible. You know how many other plays there were? I mean, there's so many other plays. And as somebody who's done it before, coaches reiterate the fact that the next play can be that play. Mm-hmm. It could be the first play of the game. Look what happened with Philadelphia, first play of the game. You could say, well, what happens in the fourth? What about the first play? If the first play you let a guy get 70 yards for a touchdown, boy, it's tough sledding from then. So you never know which is the most important play. And I just don't want to hear belly aching about referees and all that kind of stuff because I don't believe in it.
I'm with you. I want to ask you about Liam Cohen with his reverse, because when we spoke last week, it looked like all signs pointed to Liam Cohen returning. And then the whole saga happens last week where, he goes ghost on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and he winds up boom. And I know his press conference is a little bit later on today. But just what's your whole take on the Liam Cohen situation with him telling the Buccaneers, all right, yeah, I'm in. Give me this contract. All right, thanks. I'll sign it. Oh, wait, I won't going to be there. I'll be there tomorrow. Hey, Todd, I got to talk to Jacksonville when he's already in Jacksonville. Like, what's your whole take on this situation with Liam Cohen?
Well, I have absolutely no problem with it. I don't. I mean, I saw the way it was happening. I don't know if there was any way for Liam Cohen to have made it any other way, okay? Because if you're dating a girl and your ex, who's a dime piece, is trying to come back, it's going to be hard to kind of have that buffer of that. If you want to get back with the dime piece, but if she doesn't come back, you're going back to this one. There's no buffer in the middle. There's no way you can still court your other team, but still try to. Because if he said to the Buccaneers, well, I'm your offensive coordinator, but I'm about to head to Jacksonville. He can't say that. They're going to say, screw you, don't come back. And then if you go to Jacksonville and it doesn't work, then what happens? To me, he got a raise. He fulfilled his lifetime dream. I don't care how they do it. I like to compare it to Live Golf and how they crucified all those golfers. And then 2 months later, they're laid up in bed with all the Saudis. Listen, money talks. Power talks. And if Liam Cohen went one time to Jacksonville and they had some schlep GM there, and then they said, well, we fired him. You could come bring your own GM. Man, you're never going to get that situation again. So to me, I say congratulations to Liam Cohen. If you're a Buccaneer fan, you may not have liked the way the whole thing transpired, but nobody sits around with all your decisions and evaluates all your decisions. So I'm happy for Liam Cohen.
Does it have any kind of impact on what goes on in Jacksonville as far as lack of leadership, lack of trust? Like, did the players look at him side-eye? Because I think that's one of the things you and I were having a discussion with last week when it came to Todd Bowles, of all these people that were saying, look, get rid of Todd Bowles. Yeah. One thing that about Todd is he's got a steady hand. He's solid as a rock. His word is his bond. And whether you agree or disagree or whether you have no problem with it, like, Liam Cohen did kind of ghost the Buccaneers a little bit, right? So, I mean, if you're a player and let's say they start the season 1-3, Ian, and Liam Cohen starts giving a different message than when he did when he started. That's one thing. You may not like Bowles as a play caller or game manager, but that dude's message is as consistent as they come. He's steady Eddie. What happens if the Jaguars go 1-3, 1-4, and then this guy changes his tune? Do people then look back at the situation and go, maybe we should have looked at him, a little side eye action, really not as a guy that's, trustworthy?
I don't think I can speak for myself, and I was in quite a few locker rooms. Players don't get into politics, dude. It just doesn't work that way. What your coach comes in, you sit up there, you listen what the coach has to say, and then the next week listen what the coach has to say. And like you said, there has to be some consistency to it.
But that's the point. That's my point, though, because you've told me before about a certain offensive line coach that you had and other coaches that you had where they were giving you one message and then all of a sudden it changed. And your perception of them changed. And I don't know if it's a lack of trust or a lack of respect that you lost. My whole thing is that if that happens with Liam Cohen, there's no underbelly of like, at least we know he's a good guy. At least we know that he's consistent. At least we know that he's dedicated and his word is strong. I think that's something that may be, I don't know if it's a politic thing, but I think that could be a possibility, or at least imagine you're a leader on that team. You're a guy that's been around the league 7-8 years. Hey, Doug Peterson, he got fired, but at least I knew what Dougie was all about. And then here comes this 39-year-old telling you the greatest thing since sliced bread, and all of a sudden, like, he's going against his word in week 5. I mean, that could be that could have a negative impact on the locker room, no?
I disagree. I mean, to me, I just don't think people ever get into that. Like, I never dug up the history of any of my head coaches. I knew of Sam White. I knew of them a little bit. I never dug up Tony Dungy. I didn't dig up Sam White. I walked in the locker room, and the way they treated me is the way I treated them back. Like, I've had people, and Jay, I've had people before go, that guy's a bad person. And then I meet him, and he's the realest person in the world. Or I've had the media tell me, that guy's a great person, and I meet him, and he's the fakest person in the world. So I have to evaluate it by myself. I think most football players are that way, but I would be shocked if anybody in Jacksonville's locker room is looking at what Liam Cohen said and questioned anything. Liam Cohen's just doing business for making money, man. Because you know how many times organizations screw players? They do. It happens all the time. And we have one situation where an organization, the Buccaneers, unfortunately, got the short end of it, and they're not going to be as good because Liam Cohen's not coming back, and I understand that. But everybody's just butthurt. If I will say this, and it's probably happened before, if the Buccaneers acquired a coach this way, not one Buck fan would care about it. You'd just be happy to get a good coach. So I think that's the way it is.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how a lot of those people that were saying that the Buccaneers should get rid of Todd Bowles for Liam Cohen are now so upset. Right. A week later,
it's hard to make them unless you win a Super Bowl. Everybody's upset.
What is your take on the tush push? Because people are talking about how they should outlaw it, they should get rid of it. It's not fair. I mean, I hate to see Philadelphia do it because I know they're going to get it. But then you look at these other teams do it, Ian, and they can't do it. So it's like, how can you penalize? Everybody else has a right to do it. They just can't execute it. So I don't know how they outlaw this thing. I mean, Philadelphia just does it right.
Listen, we should say, well, Buffalo, your quarterback's not allowed to run from the shotgun. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. It's a legal play that's been around forever. They just perfected it. And I watched the game with Tony Mayberry, and Tony hates it. When I mean hate, Tony, every time it happens, Tony's like, that's shortening careers. And I never thought about it. But as a center, you're absorbing it all, and people are pushing on your back. And people are pushing on you, so you're just basically shortening your spine. And I think that takes a lot out of Jalen Hurts as well. If you watched the college game the other day, was it Georgia on the first drive? The quarterback went down and he scored. And right away I go, that might be the last touchdown they score.
Notre Dame.
Why I go,
Notre Dame?
Notre Dame, yes, Notre Dame. Somebody is why I go, did you see how much effort that guy used in that drive? He's pumping his legs and he's driving people. Nobody's in that good a shape. And I think that wears him out a little bit. And I think that might wear him out later in the season. Now, it's going to be hard not to call it when you're on the one-time yard line, because when you turn and hand off the ball, bad things can happen. So if you have that in your back pocket, you got to bring that out every damn time. I don't think they're going to stop. Everybody can do it, but I don't know if they can teach it because Philadelphia does it different.
Why do you think they can do it and nobody else can?
They've just figured it out. Tom Brady was probably the best at doing it himself, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really a line thing. It was more of a his technique. This is a line technique, and I see Buffalo do it. They don't have people in the back pushing. Philadelphia just has it, bro. It's just, and when everybody knows what you're doing and it's a sneak, it's usually hard to get a half a yard. Philadelphia gets 4 yards sometimes. Like, I see the center 3 yards off the line of scrimmage and the quarterback's on top of him. I go, I don't know how they did it, but they somehow created an air tunnel or something, and they get through it and it works. I think the only team that had a lot of success against it was the Buccaneers, and that's probably because of Vita Vea.
Yeah, and you saw Frankie Louvu trying to jump over the line of scrimmage doing the
Yeah, 10
Superman thing.
times. Too many.
You gotta try.
Come on,
You gotta do something though, right? You can't just sit there and take it.
You're right.
So did you see the line today with the who opened up as the favorites?
I believe Philadelphia's favorite.
No, we had this conversation last night.
Really? Who's the favorite?
Chiefs open up 1.5.
Okay.
We were going back and forth about it. I said 2.5 Chiefs. 1.5.
Move. I think it'll move down.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll move to 1 because I think Philadelphia people are going to jump all over that. I can see that.
Easy money. You think it'll be even money by the time the game starts?
It's a possibility, man. But listen, it's a coin toss, just like I saw Buffalo, Kansas City. It could go either way. But I did say at the end, boy, to bet against Kansas City at home that's tough sledding, man.
We're going to talk a lot more about it next week. The line ticked up to a consensus Chief -2, 30 minutes after opening Sunday night.
Okay.
So 2 to now 1.5. I didn't know the Chiefs were the underdogs the last 2 Super Bowls. I didn't know that.
I don't think I was aware of that either.
I don't know. What are you guys going to be doing for the Super Bowl?
We always have people here, and I'll be honest with you, Jay. Kava and Kratom and sports don't really mix. So we can tell our people all day long with the football game. They don't know what game it is, and sometimes we have people come in with like Saints jerseys on. I'm going, "Are you a Saints fan?" Yeah. I go, "Do you know they're playing right now?" And they're like, "Oh no, I didn't know." And they're on TV. And they're on TV playing the Bucks. And the guy's a Saints shirt on. He doesn't know the Bucks. They're playing the Bucks. So
who's your favorite player?
Kava fans are not the biggest sports fans in the world.
Not the crossover, huh?
No, it's not big. No, it doesn't. They don't go together.
How'd you get into Kava? I know somebody was asking me that the other day.
Well, when I stopped drinking alcohol about 3.5 years ago, and everybody needs vices, I guess, or just something to keep you busy. So somebody introduced me to Kava and Kratom, and it doesn't get you drunk, but you get a little euphoric feeling from it. And it's been Kava and Kratom ever since. I don't send out any dumb texts, and I don't do dumb things. And I just had this conversation today. Most people have never done anything dumb sober. So I don't do dumb things anymore because I drink Kava and Kratom.
What's your favorite kind of Kratom?
I'm a red guy. The red Kratom is kind of a calming thing, kind of like a marijuana thing. I totally lean towards the marijuana things, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I hear that. How's things going with Calta and everybody?
Everybody's good, man. I mean, that's a funny family I have over there. Monica, I did the show with JP. Actually, I was on Mike's show this morning. And then I did about a half-hour JP show with Monica, who is by far the biggest Bills fan I've ever met in my life. And Jay, I feel for her, bro, because she's hurting, man. Like, I mean, when I mean hurting for real, though, like, I look in her eyes and she's just like, you can't even joke about it. It's not funny to her. We had a conversation before the playoffs, and she goes, "Well, all my Bills got to do is make it because there's no way they would lose a 5th one." And I said, "Boy, that's 30 years after they lost 4 in a row." I go, "There's really no way they could lose 4 in a row," and they did that. So you have to watch your mouth. But unfortunately, they didn't get there, and she's just not in a good place at all.
You tell her to go look up Jerry West's career. How many times did he lose to the Celtics before winning? I think he lost I want to say he lost 7 times before he
really
something like that. I got to look it up, but tell her to look up Jerry West's career. Real quick, I want to show you this before you go. Big sports fan, Kratom fan, been sober 2 years. Shane Tucker. So good job for you, Shane.
Congratulations, brother.
Go check them out. 4817 Southwest Shore Boulevard, the Dignitary Tea and Kava House. Ian and I will have the Beckles and Recher podcast around 3:30 on Wednesday, and let everybody know what is going on within the trenches.
Well, I'm flipping the script a little bit with In the Trenches since it's the off season, and I want to talk about free agency, forever. This stupid stuff. There's not much happening right now, so I'm gonna kind of flip a little bit to a "Where are they now" type of thing with former Buccaneers. My first could be Martin Gramatica. I consider Martin a friend. I've known Martin. I know you've hung around Martin before.
Yeah,
Just
man.
good people, nice dude, and I'm gonna start interviewing people and just pick their brain a little bit. I don't know that much about. I know Martin a little bit. I want to learn a little bit about the inside of Martin and what makes him tick. Tony Mayberry said he would do it. Mark Royals.
No.
Oh, hey, who else can get
Wow.
Tony Mayberry behind the microphone? Good luck with that.
I can't believe that.
Right? It's
J-
crazy.
Jerry West was 1-8 in the NBA Finals. He lost his first 6 NBA Finals to the Celtics, 2 more to the Knicks. 1-8.
he's like Susan Lucci.
You got that right, man.
Mhm.
Susan Lucci. There, that's what happens. We start talking about soap operas like we did
Right.
yesterday. All My Children, General Hospital. The great
Yeah.
Ian Beckles. Follow him on all social media platforms. Beck, I appreciate it. See you on Wednesday, buddy.
One love, kid.
All right. The one and only number 62 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts, the great Ian Beckles. He's going to record with our guy, Martin Gramatica, in the trenches coming up. So make sure you follow him and support him. Yeah. If you get a chance to ever go watch one of the games, and again, a lot of people are they're doing the Kava thing, they're doing the Kratom thing, but it's always fun to go watch the games over there. Tony Mayberry's there. We had Shooter from Shooter in the Stash. If you ever watched the We the Thunder podcast, one of the bigger Tampa Bay Lightning fans, Shooter was over there at the game at the Dignitary Tea in Kava House, so you can go check that out as well. But yeah, just looking back at these games again, Saquon Barkley and what they were able to do, and just that matchup. And you heard Ian say it there. If there's one team that can beat this Chiefs club, it is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. And now, for the next couple of weeks, they're going to break this entire game down. They're just going to look at the times that they've played. And we saw it, earlier this year, November 20th, where the Eagles were, was it November 20th this year? No, last year, 21-17. The Eagles were able to beat the Chiefs. And listen, you could say all you want about winning that game, but that means nothing compared to the Super Bowl. And we saw it February 12th, back 2023, 2 years ago, 38-35 victory for the Chiefs over the Eagles. The Chiefs outscored the Eagles 17-8 right there at the end of the game. And, Harrison Butker wins it with a field goal with 8 seconds left on the clock. They went 12 plays, 66 yards. You remember that was the pass interference call that went against them. But the Eagles in that game put up 417 yards of offense. They turned the ball over one time. They lost the turnover battle. But just listen to some of the stats that we have from that game. Mahomes, 21 of 27, 182 yards. He threw 3 touchdowns. He ran 6 times for 44 yards. He didn't get sacked one time in that game. That is something that needs to change. If Philadelphia is going to win this Super Bowl, they have to get to Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not talking about just pressure. They have to bring him down. They have to force him to second long and third long situations. It cannot be like we saw 2 years ago where Patrick Mahomes did not get sacked one time. We also remember how great Jalen Hurts was in that game. 27 of 38. 304 yards. He threw for a touchdown, but on the ground, 15 carries for 70 yards, 3 touchdowns. And I know we do remember the lost fumble. That was a killer. Nick Bolton came up with that one. That was a huge, huge play in the game. But I looked. Devontae Smith, 7 catches for 100 yards. A.J. Brown, 6 for 96 and a touchdown. Dallas Goedert, 6 for 60. That's the Philadelphia side. Kelsey, 6 for 81 and a touchdown there. We know Kadarius Toney caught a touchdown pass, and Sky Moore. Juju, 7 for 53. But the one guy in this game, or the one guy that's going to be in this game in a couple of weeks that wasn't there 2 years ago, Saquon Barkley. The leading rusher outside of Jalen Hurts in that game was Kenneth Gainwell, 7 carries for 21 yards. Miles Sanders, 7 for 16. It's a different ball game. They're going to attack this game in a different way than the last couple of times that they've played them, because you have one of the he's a cheat code. Saquon Barkley is a cheat code. And it's not just going to be something that, all right, he's going to run the football. Yeah, run the ball. They're going to throw the ball to him. Don't be surprised if they get creative. He throws a pass, right? They're going to find a way to make sure that Saquon Barkley is a big, big part of this game. And when you look at why the Chiefs were so successful against the Buffalo Bills, they know this. And we're going to talk about Julien BriseBois in a little bit, but you talk about the roles that these guys have. You can't forget about the players that got you there and how you utilize them to get you there. And you see this in the fourth quarter of these games. And it's not always the fourth quarter. It's not always the last drive. Sometimes it's to get to that point. I said this a couple of weeks ago when the Baltimore Ravens lost. Like, I just didn't like how in neither one of their 2-point conversions they gave him the football. I don't like that they only ran him. They ran him less than 20 times. And the same thing could be argued with James Cook. Like, he ran the ball 13 times. 13 times for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ty Johnson ran the ball 6 times for 19 yards. Like, I don't I know you want to keep guys fresh, and I know you want to rotate guys in, but like in no way, it doesn't make any sense to me how Kareem Hunt out-touched James Cook last night when it came to running the football. It doesn't make any sense to me. He ran the ball for 85 yards, 6.5 yards per carry for 2 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt turning back the clock a little bit, 17 for 64 and a touchdown himself. And, Pacheco gets in there as well. And I mentioned Samaje Perine, their third running back, coming up with the huge third down conversion to really seal the deal for Kansas City. But the best teams make sure that they're utilizing their big players in these situations where you can't take anything away from them. They did the job. They did the job, and that's why they're moving on. That's why they're not moving on. Teams that don't do that. You don't question that for the Kansas City Chiefs. You don't question they didn't throw it to this guy. They didn't do this. They find a way to win. So whether it's last week where Travis Kelce was a huge part of the offense, or this week where only had 2 touches for 19 yards. He did have that drop early on. But it's not just about catching the football if you're a real legit tight end. It's blocking. And Travis Kelce doesn't get nearly enough love for what he's able to do in the running game and how he's able to pave the way for these running backs, and including a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Nobody ever goes out there and puts Patrick Mahomes in that category of Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or now Jaden Daniels, where he's a quote-unquote running quarterback. But Patrick Mahomes had 2 touchdowns on the ground, and he knows exactly what it takes in the postseason to be successful running the football as a quarterback. It may only be 1 play. It may only be 2 or 3 plays. I mean, he ran the ball a ton yesterday. But I want to look at his rushing. In his career, he's averaged 5.2 yards, and that's in the regular season. 5.2 yards per carry in the regular season. In the postseason, 5.4 yards per carry. So you just look at that, right? This is a guy that knows when the game's on the line, it may not be a ton, and it's only averaged out to, early on in his career, about 3 or 4 times a game. 9 times per game this year in 2 games, 18 carries. But this is a dude that understands when the game is on the line, I have to do whatever it takes to win. You can look at a bunch of different things when it comes to why the Kansas City Chiefs are so successful. But look at Patrick Mahomes and the accuracy when he's throwing the football and the decision-making. That is the most important trait, the most important characteristic. I've echoed the sentiments of Jimmy Johnson, who said this many, many years ago. You can tell me that you want a 6'5" quarterback that can throw 90 miles an hour and all these things, and he looks like a great god, and he has all these great attributes about him. He looks like a guy that you would create on Madden. That's awesome. But give me a guy that's accurate with the football, and give me a guy that is going to make sure that he's going to make the right decisions. Those are the guys that are going to win. That's the greatest attribute that Patrick Mahomes has. He makes fantastic decisions. When to keep the ball, when to check it down. And you can see he's not really pushing down he's not throwing the ball down the field 30 yards all the time. It's not like, all right, spread them out, 4 wide, 5 wide. Little fake play action here, dump the ball off, short pass here, short pass here. Look at how they started the game. Go back and watch how they started the game against the Buffalo Bills. They were working the seam in the middle of the field. Kansas City got off to such a great start, excuse me, in that game yesterday, where I never felt like they were out of control. They always had their finger on the pulse of what it was going to take to be successful in that contest. I said the opposite about Baltimore last week against Buffalo, where it just never felt like they were in control of the game. I felt quite the opposite yesterday. Even though Buffalo came back, even though they took the lead, even though they didn't play a bad game, there was never a spot in that game where you were worried about the Kansas City Chiefs taking the reins and coming home with a victory. Does that come with experience? Of course. But it also has to do with having guys in positions where you know that you can trust their decision-making process. That is the biggest reason why Tom Brady was so successful in what he was able to do, and why Patrick Mahomes is that new era. And let's say they win back-to-back Super Bowls. I mean, the conversation is going to be had over the next couple of years, because newsflash for everybody out there, he's not slowing down. They're just going to keep getting better and better and better. And you look at the multitude of weapons that the Kansas City Chiefs had in the game yesterday. I mean, there's no shortage of options. Yeah, they have Travis Kelce, but Xavier Worthy, a guy that Buffalo traded. And it's so crazy to think that the Buffalo Bills are directly responsible for Xavier Worthy and Patrick Mahomes being on their team. Both of those selections in the draft were originally spots taken up by the Buffalo Bills. And when you see Mahomes lead his team to victory once again, you see Xavier Worthy, 6 catches on 7 targets, 85 yards in the touchdown. Go back and look at his touchdown grab. The way that he's able to catch the ball and to reverse and turn 180 and get up the field, wow. Incredible. It was like a 4x4, relay runner taking that baton and just dusting everybody. Juju Smith-Schuster, veteran in this league, not afraid to tackle, not afraid to block. He gets a couple of grabs. That long one, 31 yards. I mean, 2 catches, 1 for 31, 1 for 29. Hollywood Brown, 3 for 35. P. Ryan, we mentioned him. 2 catches for Isaiah Pacheco. Only 1 catch for DeAndre Hopkins, and then Kareem Hunt as well. So there is a multitude of weapons that Patrick Mahomes has, and you just know whoever it is out there, he's going to make the right decision. Justin Watson, Noah Gray. Like, there's guys that didn't even catch a pass yesterday that I wouldn't be surprised one bit if they had a catch in the Super Bowl. That is what he does. And that's why it's so fun to watch. Let's see. Michael LaRue checking in. Hey, Michael. The Bucs got Cohen the exact same way from Kentucky last year. He said he was staying at UK last year and then left for a raise and promotion. UK fans are butthurt, and now Bucs fans. Yeah, Mike, I put this on my social media. I think it was last week after everything happened on 3.com. Really great job over there, what those guys do. They wrote a long article about Liam Cohen leaving and how much he said that I'm going to plant some roots here. I'm going to spend the next couple of years here. And then he goes to the Buccaneers. This guy is always looking for kind of advancement in his career. And now that he's head coach in the National Football League, does that change? Does it stay the same? I know Ian says it's not a big deal and the guys don't worry about politics. And I kind of get that. And I'm not saying that when you look at a situation like Liam Cohen, people are going to automatically right off the rip not trust him. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that once something happens with the Jacksonville Jaguars and they struggle, and Liam Cohen has to get up there in front of his team and has to relay a message to them with a different tone of optimism that he had when he starts the season, because that's what every coach has to do. Every coach is optimistic when the season starts. But how does that message change throughout the season? Because it's very easy to be able to change what your message is when things aren't going according to plan. The best coaches adjust. The best coaches find a way. The best coaches, again, I've said this before, I'll say it again, they're even keel. They don't get too high. They don't get too low. They find a way to guys stay the course, and they focus on the process, not so much the result. And we know that is a staple of John Cooper, of Kevin Cash, and Todd Bowles. That is the underlying theme through all 3 of our coaches here in the Tampa Bay area. None of those guys are freaking out when things go wrong. They stay the course. Can Liam Cohen be that guy? It's easy to do that when you're doing well. But when you're struggling, you just don't know. I don't even know if he knows. Chris Meeks, what makes this matchup so good is that both teams have been there, Eagles and Chiefs. Let's see if the Eagles have learned. It's kind of tough to say, like, what do they have to change from the first time these two teams played in the Super Bowl? Because you could argue that the difference in that game was the fumble from Jalen Hurts that Nick Bolton picked up. It was a 3-point game. I don't know if there's anything, those like holdovers from those guys that were there 2 years ago. Maybe just the enormity of the moment. Maybe not, again, not getting too high, not getting too low. But I don't look at that. I don't look back at that game, nor did I look at that game at the time and say the reason why the Eagles came out on top was because the reason why the Chiefs came out on top is because they were more experienced. I didn't look at it like that. I just thought in that game, whoever had the ball at the end was going to win. And that was the Chiefs. And the Eagles only had 8 seconds left on the clock. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're headed right down the journey of doing the same exact thing here in 2025. I'm not one of those people that are looking at this matchup and like, oh, here we go again. That last game was amazing. 38-35. You have two young, incredibly gifted and talented quarterbacks that are good dudes. I wish we got something like that every year. Patrick Mahomes, you're building on a Hall of Fame resume. You're building on a legacy that is going to be matched and rivaled by very few athletes to ever play this game. Travis Kelce, could this be the last time that he suits up for the Kansas City Chiefs? Could be. Could be. What about a guy like Chris Jones on the defensive side of the ball, right? Bolton, Tranquil, McDuffie. Like, there's good players. And when you talk about this defense and you talk about Steve Spagnuolo, those guys need to get some love too. Those guys deserve credit as well. Because when they need to come up with stops, they come up with them. It's not just Patrick Mahomes in the offense. It takes two to tango. And those guys fly under the radar, and they don't get near the amount of credit that they deserve for the success of this team the last couple of years. Not from the outside. I know from the inside, there's a lot of love and there's a lot of respect there. But here, not just here, because I said it out there. I like it. I love watching this Kansas City Chiefs defense do their thing because it's a bunch of different guys. And I didn't mention George Karlaftis either. Ian loves that guy. 3 sacks in the divisional round against the Houston Texans. I thought the Bills did a decent job of keeping Josh Allen upright. Only 2 sacks in that game. 1 from Treshaun Wharton and 1 from Mike Dana. So those are 2 guys. Again, the rotation. I say this a lot when it comes to football. The positions that you need numbers, you got to just keep putting it out there. You got to keep investing free agents. You got to keep investing draft picks. Throw guys on the defensive line because you don't know who's going to come up with the big play. I think it was when the Giants were able to beat the undefeated Patriots and Tom Brady. The big sack, was it Jay Alford or Barry Cofield? Somebody I think it was Jay Alford. One of the guys that had the big sack at the end of the game wasn't OCU Manure or Justin Tuck or Michael Strahan. It was a depth guy that got right in Tom Brady's face. That's what you need. You need a guy to be able to come up and make a play that maybe you didn't realize. Maybe you didn't realize he was going to be that big of a part of what the defensive game plan was going to be, and they etched their name in history because of one play that they made. Nobody thought, and I know this is on the offensive side of the ball, but nobody going into the Super Bowl between the Giants and the Patriots thought that David Tyree was going to be a guy. It was Plaxico Burress on the Giants side, right? It was Amani Toomer. It was, Randy Moss on the other side. That you're looking at, all right, who's going to make a big play? It's rarely the guy you expect it to be. So as we get closer and closer to the Super Bowl, take a good long look at these rosters. and who could make an impact. Because as much as we want to say it's an A.J. Brown or Travis Kelce, it could be a guy that didn't even have a catch in the conference championship game that turns out to be the hero in the Super Bowl. All right, it's 2:00. Let's get to the conversation that we've been waiting all day to have here. And that is the discussion with Julien BriseBois today over at Amalie Arena. And I'll give everybody a second to be able to get in here. I just retweeted it on Twitter. But yeah, so this has been really cool the last couple of years to be able to see kind of a peek behind the curtain, what makes the Tampa Bay Lightning so great. And this is the third year that I've been invited to Amalie to be a part of this. And it's only a small portion of the media. It's usually the written media that gets a chance to be able to sit down and to be able to not only listen to Julien BriseBois and hear what he has to say as the Lightning general manager, but also to ask him questions. And I asked a couple of questions, as well as I mentioned the people that were there: Eric Erlinson, Ed Encina, and John Romano from the Tampa Bay Times, Corey Long, Tom Laberger, Deandra Liu, Ben Pierce, and Gabby Shirley from the Lightning Day, Michigan as well. But yeah, it's just, you walk out of that sit down, that fireside chat with Julien BriseBois, and it is really something to behold, because this is one of the best general managers in all of sports. And he doesn't have to do this. Listen, this isn't something that we don't do it with Jason Light, or at least I don't know. I'm not invited, but I'm pretty sure Jason Light doesn't do this. And I'm pretty sure that we have an opportunity to talk to Neander throughout the year, some of the guys with the Rays, but it's not like this where it's very, all right, this is when it's going to be. It's going to be at the arena at this time. And for Julien to be able to take time out of his day to give us, it's just great. So let's get right into it. He starts off talking about some of the numbers during the year. And he opened today with the team's number one in scoring. They were 10th in goal. They're 10th in goals allowed. They were 22nd last year. 5-on-5, which I know is a huge thing for him. Goals percentage 7th last year is 25th. Power play is 4th. Percentage, though, is higher than when the team was first last year. Penalty kill is 7th, but 1st since November 1st. So he seems to be very happy with everything that he's getting from this team. The underlying statistics, he said this multiple times, he's very happy with. Why isn't the record better? And he says randomness of results. They lose a lot of games where they're doing a lot of good things, as opposed to last year when they left the arena. That games that they lost, they kind of felt like, yeah, we probably deserve to lose that game. And I remember having this discussion 2 years ago when he said close to the same thing of, there's these games that we lose and we go, we're just that close. We're that close. We're doing everything right. The process looks good. He didn't hide away and shy away from this being the most challenging stretch, the grueling stretch of the season. 14 games in 24 days. 10 on the road, 4 back-to-backs. And then 3 of those 4 back-to-backs, they played a team that did not have a game the day before. I think all of them, or if not 3 of the 4 of them, were less than 24 hours. The game on Sunday was less than 24 hours on Saturday, which is crazy to me that that's the way that the schedule goes. And he also was very honest that the guys are gassed during this time of the year. And that's why they had yesterday off. They had today off, and not they had to, come in for meetings. No, they had days off, like completely off. And multiple times throughout our chat, he mentioned that it is not about the effort. It's just at times about the execution. Always about process over outcome. Stick with it and the results will come. We've mentioned, and I know Dave Michigan asked this question about at the end of games, the losing leads late. And he attributed it to, if like, listen, it happens when you're fatigued and you lose a little bit of focus. And but he doesn't seem like that is going to be a recurring issue. Like that's something that he should really be spending a lot of time on. Also, the interdivision thing. I know you look at their division with their record within the division this year, and it hasn't been great. 3-8 in the division. And you look at it and you go, you got to do better there. I think it was 3-8, I'm pretty sure. But he doesn't look at it as something where it's something to panic. Like, I don't have to, make a mountain out of a molehill there. Because you look at I'm trying to get it here. Division, Lightning. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 3-8. I got to look it up. I forgot to look it up before the show. But that record, it's not wearing on him. because he's so focused on process over result. He's so focused on things like turnovers leading to chances, where last year was 19th, turnovers leading to grade A's for the other team. It's 7th this year. So there's a lot of underlying statistics that Julien BriseBois seems to kind of recognize and understand that it doesn't necessarily correlate to what their record is overall and their record, especially in the division. He understands that they have to get better and they have to win those games if they want to move up and guarantee themselves a playoff spot, but he's not freaking out about it. Trade deadline stuff. He's on the lookout like he is every year. He's going to see what's out there. We're going to be making that trade if it's out there, but he says it's still early. Most teams in the Eastern Conference still in it, and he wants to add to the team without taking away. Really aggressive by maximizing the roster. We've seen that already this year. And one thing that he's told us in the past that is different than this year, it doesn't have to be dollar out and dollar in this year. So that is a big, big part of how he's going to address the NHL trade deadline, because they've been so close to the salary cap the last couple of years, where if they were going to bring anybody in, they had to send pretty much the exact same number on the way out, or they wouldn't be cap compliant. But we've seen, especially recently with Max Crozier, with him helping out the defense when Eric Chernak was banged up, but them sending him down. So as the cap gets calculated daily, it's not counting against the salary cap. He's been sent down to the AHL, Eric Chernak back in the lineup. So he is definitely going to be keeping his eye out for moves. And he didn't say it today. I didn't see him said it today, but this is something that he talks about all the time. I'm not just looking at the trade deadline and around the trade deadline to make this team better. It is a 365-day thing. And some people could say that, and you look at that and you're like, all right, whatever, Julien. Every general manager feels that way. But that's how he is. He doesn't always wait until the trade deadline to make a move. If there is something that springs up here in the next week, he'll do it. If it's a week before the trade deadline, he'll do it. He is always trying to find a way to make this team better. And that's what you have to love and appreciate about Julien BriseBois. He's just not going to sit on his hands and go, all right, well, nothing was there for us. He's going to turn over every stone. And his involvement with Team Canada and watching as many games and following as many players as he has this year is only going to help that. It's a byproduct of watching as many games. He's everywhere, traveling all across North America, making it happen. Another question that he was asked is the depth scoring. Is this Tampa Bay Lightning team too reliant on their top players? But he said it kind of comes in waves. Depth scoring comes and goes, and teams around the National Hockey League are becoming more top heavy. So it's not just the Tampa Bay Lightning. If you look at a lot of these teams, they also have that same kind of like, our top players play a ton and they make up the majority of our scoring. So I wanted to ask this question to Julien BriseBois, because this is something, especially over the last couple of days, we've seen a lot of people in Bolts Nation questioning, like, why is Nikita Kucherov playing so much? He has played a ton over the last couple of weeks. So I wanted to bring it up real quick, and let's bring it up real quick. So we have the exact numbers for you guys. All right. So the last 4 games. So check this out. The last 4 games for Nikita Kucherov. January 20th against the Toronto Maple Leafs, he played 25 minutes and 6 seconds. Next game, the very next night in Montreal against the Canadiens, 26 minutes and 55 seconds. January 24th at Chicago, 25 minutes, just a hair over there. And then the very next night in Detroit against the Red Wings, 26 minutes and 14 seconds. So some people are worried about Nikita Kucherov playing that many minutes. I am not one of those people. But I had to ask it because I know that is kind of a hot button conversation going on right now with Tampa Bay Lightning fans. Why is he playing so much? And I also, as I posed the question to Julien BriseBois, does it have anything to do with him getting some time off with the 4 Nations coming up in a couple of weeks? He answered that no, has nothing to do with it. And these are the reasons why he said Nikita Kucherov is playing that many minutes and why he's not worried about it. 1, he can handle it. 2, he really takes such good care of himself. And 3, he relishes the opportunities. Like, he wants to do these things. He wants to be out there for the full 2 minutes of the power play. He wants to get out there with Point and Gensel, but then a couple shifts later out there with Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel. He likes the 11 and 7 because he gets to play with different guys. And Julien answered and also added to that answer a little while after that, saying, Jay, top players around the league are doing it too. This is not one of those things where Nikita Kucherov is the only guy playing this much and the only guy playing the full 2 minutes on the power play. He had 0 reservations about Nikita Kucherov playing this much. And I don't either. When you look at Kucherov, he's not a guy that's going into the corner, playing a very big physical game where you're worried about wear and tear. Like, this is a guy that plays at his own speed. You may be jockeying in the corner for the puck, but he takes a step back and he waits for the puck to come out. And he's a playmaker. And he loves playing hockey. There's nothing that he loves on this planet outside of his family than getting on the ice and playing hockey and doing whatever it takes to win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Maybe if he played a different style, I'd have an issue with it. But I look at Nikita Kucherov and I look at the type of player that he is, and I listen to what Julien BriseBois had to say about the situation. I've got no issue with it. Not one bit. And, well, listen, even though Julien said that's not a reason why that he's playing so much, I could say that it's going to help that even if he plays a ton over these next couple of games at Amalie Arena, he's going to have a couple of weeks off. Well, a handful of guys on his team are going to go represent their countries in the 4 nations. So for him, even though he's probably going to be in the ice somewhere, he's going to be able to kind of get a little bit of a rest and relaxation, whether it's physically or mentally. Again, he takes care of himself in such a way that this should not be an issue. Julien also added when it came to the 4 nations, it's going to be a break for guys not playing. So he's not going to ask a ton from these guys. And I'm not talking about the guys playing in the tournament, the guys that aren't participating. So that'll be good. That'll be good for him. Asking about kind of the comparisons from this year to last year. All in all, a better team than last year, making the guys around them better. I mean, you think about the players that have joined in and how they've made the guys around them better and also been a bigger part of the leadership core of this group. You look at Ryan McDonough, you look at a healthy Andrei Vasilevsky. He mentioned Jake Gensel and Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel taking another step. J.J. Moser, who I saw today at Amalie Arena, he's in good spirits. So there's just a lot of people that contribute to the success and why this team has taken, they're better than last year. Multiple times throughout the chat with Julien BriseBois today, he mentioned these 2 things, work ethic and competitiveness. It's the number one thing. And he said he can't recall a game where the effort wasn't there. Guys haven't quit in games when they're behind. He also brought up the San Jose Sharks game where nothing went right for them in that game. The execution was as poor as it's been all year, but there was no issue with the work ethic. Those guys were battling. They did whatever it took to try to put themselves in a position to win that game. What does Brian McDonough bring to the team? That was a question asked by Lightning writer Benjamin Pierce, and he said stability, Ryan McDonough. He's like an extra coach out there. And I don't know if I mentioned it here on the podcast, but I'm in the middle of doing some work for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm writing an article on Ryan McDonough for the Tampa Bay Lightning website. So when it comes out, please, I'm just asking you guys to please support and to get that message out there. And I'm going around and asking multiple people that know and have coached or played with or have been around Ryan McDonough during his tenure in the National Hockey League. And hopefully talk to Patrick Maroon tomorrow when he's in town with Chicago Blackhawks, Brian Engblom and Julien BriseBois and Tom Mulligan, the trainer, and a couple of his other current and former teammates. I want to be able to talk to them and kind of give everybody a peek behind the curtain of who Ryan McDonough is as a player, as a teammate, but as a human being as well. So Julien was kind enough to give me a couple minutes after the fireside chat today to talk about Ryan McDonough. And you can just see the impact that he's had on this team. He's such an integral part of their defense and just the backbone and what they do well and the consistency. It's another guy there's a steadiness to him. There's a consistency to him. And this team is a lot better because he is an assistant captain and he's suited up wearing number 27 for the Bolts once again. A guy that also came in from the offseason is Jake Gensel. And you could hear when Julien BriseBois was asked about the Lightning's left winger, how much of a just affection may be too strong, but just how much appreciation that he has for Jake Gensel. And I think Julien speaks for all of us because we knew Jake Gensel was a good player, right? We saw it when he played all those years with the Pittsburgh Penguins, playing with Sidney Crosby. We saw it when he was acquired by the Carolina Hurricanes in their run last year in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But you don't really appreciate how good a guy like Jake Gensel is until you watch him on a day in, day out, night in, night out basis. And he was like beaming talking about Jake Gensel because he is legit. Whatever you need him to do, he's going to be able to help out. He can pass, he can shoot, he can play center, he can win faceoffs, he can play the wing, penalty kill, power play. Just an intelligent hockey player. And speaking to a couple of guys after the chat today that were part of the Lightning organization, they just spoke about how Jake Gensel is he's so uber focused on his game. And that's what you get from a lot of these guys. Nikita Kucherov, Jake Gensel, Anthony Cirelli, Brendan Hagel. It's just a couple of the guys. And, you know, we talk about Brandon Hagel. Now we're looking at his contributions to this team and Team Canada. We'll talk more about Team Canada in a second. But Julien BriseBois looked at a guy like Brandon Hagel and was like, all right, this is a guy right here that if we get our paws on him, he is going to be even better than what he was in Chicago with the Blackhawks. And you have to say it, right? Like you have to like give him credit and be like, you were spot on, dude. This was a guy that not many people knew about, and he's come in here and he's one of the best players on the Tampa Bay Lightning team. Another guy that he was asked about was Connor Geekie, 20 years old. Julien BriseBois, did not expect him to be with the team this year, but really good in camp, really strong start to the season. He's eager to get better. He's got a great mentality. It's impressive to see what he's accomplished. Those are the words that Julien used. But he, like the rest of his teammates, no more, no less, Julien said, fatigue. And he's probably hitting that rookie wall. There's a few players that this upcoming break due to the Four Nations face-off are going to really benefit. And I truly believe that Connor Geekie is one of those. To be able to reset, take a deep breath, get away from the game a little bit, and then come back and finish the season strong. I like what I've seen from Connor Geekie. I think that, you know, to get a couple, I think he could take his game even to the next level. You don't want to push a kid like that. I get that. But, you know, you put him with these big time players and he's on the team. Like, expectations should raise a little bit. I'm excited to see how he plays down the stretch and what kind of impact he can have with the Tampa Bay Lightning in the playoffs. JJ Moser, again, I mentioned him walking around at Amalie. I see him so much, even though he hasn't been 100%. This decor certainly misses him. But the thing that sticks out about JJ Moser when it comes to Julien BriseBois is his hockey sense. The more you watch, the more you appreciate it. Kind of what we just said about Jake Gensel. Smart plays all the time. The Lightning announced that they're expecting him back around the break. But, I mean, think about it. Does it make sense to bring him back before then? Julien said it wouldn't be impossible, but listen, you got a couple more games. You got these guys up here. Let them do their thing. And then when the break happens, let him recuperate some more, rehab some more. And then coming out of the break, I would fully expect JJ Moser to be back in there playing with Victor Hedman. Victor Hedman being the captain in the leadership role. That's another thing that was asked of Julien BriseBois, because remember, when you look at what the Tampa Bay Lightning have done this year, it has been without Steven Stamkos, a guy that was their leader for such a long time. And I said this right here on my show, and I've said it for a while. if there's any team that could handle losing a guy that had the stature of a Steven Stamkos, it's the Bolts, especially getting Ryan McDonough back, but also because you have young guys in that locker room ready to take that next step. And you have a guy that's a captain anyway. He was a co-captain in for a lack of better terms, with this team with Steven Stamkos. And that's Victor Hedman. You know, he really relishes the role of captain, as Julien said. He takes a lot of pride in the role. And he said it's worked as good as he's imagined. Cirelli and Hagel have stepped up their leadership roles. Matt contributed as well. And it's just a good thing to see that there's no fractures in the foundation. Everything with the Tampa Bay Lightning, when it comes to the leadership, guys have really stepped up, and nobody stepped up more than Victor Hedman. Ryan McDonough being back is a great thing. And again, I just mentioned it. Julien said that the pandemic really screwed up the salary cap. He's really back, really happy that he's back now, and talks with him about an extension premature, but it seemed like there was some interest there, which, you know, Mac's not getting any younger, but if there's anybody that can play into his 40s, why not? Why not, right? Also, what is it going to take for Max Crozier to be in this lineup in a more consistent way? And that's one of the questions that I had. He said opportunity, consistency. Obviously, you want him to be consistent. He was banged up earlier this year. He's had some good moments with the Tampa Bay Lightning, but also opportunity, because you have Chernak and you have Radish and you have Perbix. He has to get that opportunity. And I know some people, myself included, may think that he's one of the better right-handed defensemen on the team, but it takes a little while, right? It takes a while for the team and the organization to be comfortable with slotting him in there as one of the 6 or 7 defensemen every single night. But he mentioned, again, competitor, awesome work ethic. That is a common thread with this team. Also, Julien mentioned that he was at Michigan State, Minnesota this past Friday night, and seeing a guy like Isaac Howard live was impressive. You can tell that he's spending time in the gym, he said, body of an NHL man right now, and a little more pop in his skating. Play is really involved. The 200-foot game, he's winning battles, making plays through checks. He also gave a tip of the hat to Adam Nightingale and everybody over there with the Spartans, doing a great job. That's exciting when you look at this young player. And for the last couple of seasons, we were wondering, like, who is going to be that next guy to be able to come in to make an impact early in his career with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I don't know if it's going to be this year, but it's not going to be long. It's not going to be long, because you look at this Michigan State team, and if you've gotten a chance to watch them, I've watched them a couple times this year. Isaac Howard is a beast, and he's stepping to the forefront. He's taking a more of a leadership role in his team. You could just tell, like, he's got the cape on. He's ready to kind of put the team on his back. Let's go. It's exciting to know that guy, sooner rather than later, will be in a Tampa Bay Lightning uniform. So we'll see. And Julien was very, very respectful of let Isaac Howard, let Michigan State focus on this season and what they got to do there. And then after the season, then we'll have some conversations with them. I like that. I like that there was a, kind of a, hey, he's going to be part of the Lightning organization. But right now, his commitment is to Michigan State. And that's what Julien is, man. He gets it. There's just certain players, certain coaches, certain front office members that he doesn't have to say things like that. Like, his candor regarding the Isaac Howard situation wasn't like, yeah, well, whatever happens, happens. We're not concerned with that. Well, when he's here, then we'll worry about it. No, like, he definitely cared about, like, his well-being. He cared about his relationship with his team. And I like that kind of stuff. That, to me, is a common thread when it comes to successful people. When it's not just about them. It's about, like, what goes on in their life, and how, not just about what goes on with them, but like what goes on with the people around them, and their decisions and their well-being, and how that's good for the overall vibe of everybody. I just, again, the more you hear from Julien BriseBois, you got to like the guy. Asked about Gage Gonsalves, really improved his game this year, physically stronger and improved skating. The last couple of games, he noticed him down in the AHL not feeling sorry for himself. He went down there. He's got trying to prove, like, hey, I'm a part of this team. I am a guy that wants to come back and contribute. We'll see. They need contributions. They need a jolt in the middle six, whether that comes from Gage Gonsalves or Jack Finley or somebody from the trade deadline. That's something to certainly keep an eye on. The Lucas Edmonds deal, traded to the Rangers for a fellow third-round pick and Ryder, says this is a classic change of scenery deal. Gave a lot of credit to Stacey Roos. He's the guy that was in charge and made that deal. So didn't really go into a big-time explanation of why that happened. It's just a classic change of scenery deal. What has impressed Julien BriseBois the most about this team this year? That guys really embrace their roles. Wherever they play, wherever they're put in, whatever position they're put in, they go out and they do their job. And he mentioned that, without using their names, but he mentioned the bottom six guys helping out on the penalty kill or just in our special teams. Mitchell Chafee is a guy that's been, helping out on the power play. We know the PK with guys like Luke Glendening and Zemgus Girgensons, like they are solid. They don't make mistakes. And you want to see Girgensons finally find the back of the net. But that is why he's so impressed with how guys have embraced their roles, because it's a little bit here and a little bit there. The last thing you want is your first line to be your two penalty killers and your first line to be your power play unit, right? I've said this for years when it came to why the Lightning defense were so successful during their Stanley Cup runs, is I looked at the left-hand defenseman. Victor Hedman was the guy that was going to be your number one guy, but he didn't have to play top penalty killing minutes because of what Ryan McDonough did. And a guy like Mikhail Sergachev, who was here, you didn't have to put all the pressure of him being the quarterback of the power play. He could be the quarterback of power play too. And they did switch on and off, but it was just such a good balance where those guys didn't get run ragged and have to play all of these different minutes. Like it benefited them in such a way where they were successful. That balance is huge. Now, the last couple things I want to talk about here is Ed Encina asked a great question from the Tampa Bay Times about players getting better and how when he acquires players, like what is the most important thing of why they take that jump from being a good player and then you get them here and they just, they improve vastly. And Julien definitely acknowledged the fact that when they go out and get players, that they think that they can get them better. And it's worked great with guys like Brandon Hagel and, a guy like Anthony, well, not Cirelli, but Brandon Hagel. Is that Brandon Hagel? Did he say another guy? I'm trying to think, because I put Cirelli on here, but that wasn't right. Okay, so Julien is he doesn't shy away from that, which I appreciate, because you got to have faith in your own abilities too. So Julien BriseBois in this front office, they look at players and they realize, like, hey, if we can get that guy here, he's going to be able to take his game to an even higher level. Brandon Hagel is the perfect example of that. And kudos to Julien for also mentioning a guy like Tanner Jeannot, where it didn't work out. He didn't kind of build on that one big year he had with the Nashville Predators. And he goes into detail about a guy like Brandon Hagel. That is a guy that when he goes out there, he turns the tide when the team needs him to. He is an elite penalty killer. And some of the stats that they looked into last year was he was a top 5 even strength performer for a Canadian-born player when it comes to, and think of this list. Listen to the list he was on. Connor McDavid, number 1, Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, Brandon Hagel, Braden Point. 4 of the 5 of those guys, Julien said, were, no doubters for Team Canada for the 4 nations, and Hagel was added later on. When Julien was asked about Team Canada, he said it was a lot more work than he expected, but he is so grateful for this opportunity. You could just hear it in his voice. Everybody has traveled a lot, and he's gone to watch so many different games, and you can tell his back and forth with the guys that he's working with Team Canada. He's loving bouncing ideas and seeing how other general managers and other people in the front office, how they analyze players. It's a very eye-opening experience. That's what I gleaned from Julien. And he also understands the weight of the responsibility that he has working for Team Canada, and it means so much to the country. And he's got a lot of respect for the guys that did make the team and didn't make the team. And he just spoke so directly and so confidently about like the decision-making process and trying to build the best team with the right players and have these guys gel with their personalities, and how letting the guys know that didn't make the team, right, shaking their hands and let them know like he was so grateful for, for them and their interest and the growth opportunity it was for him to see, like, to put himself in that position of, all right, what do I got to do? He loves working. It does help working with John Cooper. He said their personalities, their chemistry that they've been able to build over the years working with the Tampa, articulated that the work is not done. And now that we know that Alex Pietrangelo is not going to be participating for Team Canada, that is a spot that needs to be filled. And Julien said he's going to get the best player to replace him, and that he's monitoring a few players because you don't know if that's going to be the last time that a guy pulls out. So he's taking this very, very seriously. And you can tell that it's an ongoing process. Up until that first game, he is going to be keeping an eye on what players are doing right now in the National Hockey League and keeping an eye on how these guys are performing, recently for their teams. Because maybe, and I'm just saying this, maybe you may not take the biggest name that is available, but maybe you'll take a guy that is playing really well. The last couple of weeks, he's on a tear. And you want to infuse that into your lineup and really give them a leg up as you go against these other teams. What a great process to be a part of if you're Julien BriseBois, to be a part of Team Canada. And especially after what just happened with the World Juniors, he mentioned that as well, of, the entire country wishing that it turned out differently. And, how now they're all looking towards the Four Nations. It's going to be an incredible contest between Finland, Sweden, Team Canada, and the United States. And you can tell there's just an extra motivation. There's an extra pep in his step when he's talking about that. He's honored to be a part of this entire process, and it would mean the world for him and John Cooper and everybody involved to put Canada back at the top. So we'll definitely be keeping a keen eye on that. But it's just for a guy like Julien BriseBois, he's pretty stoic. He's a passionate guy, but there's just something different about representing your country, and especially Canadians, because hockey means so much to them. It's one of their two national sports. He is not taking this responsibility lightly. So to be able to listen to him speak about that, I'm very curious to see how this whole process works out. Because if Team Canada wins, a large part is going to be because of the guy they have behind the bench, and John Cooper, and one of the main guys who put this whole thing together, Julien BriseBois. So great stuff there. That was kind of the overall what went on with him today. And some breaking news here. Looks like Logan Thompson coming to an extension with the Washington Capitals. 6 years, just under $6 million. And that's from our guy, Kevin Weeks. So good stuff there. Again, follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok. Back at noon tomorrow here on the program. But I want to get into my 3 stars of the weekend before we wrap things up today. First off, Madison Keys. I mean, come on. Our American girl was able to do it, beating Sabalenka. I tried to get up early, man, but I was absolutely spent. But to see her win the Australian Open, to see who she was able to beat, defeating the world's number 1 Arina Sabalenka. Again, 6'3", 2'6", 7'5", in 2 hours and 2 minutes. She went through a murderer's row of people to get to that. I mean, to be able to beat Iga Swiatek in the semifinal, facing a match point. Sabalenka, Collins, Rybakina, Iga Swiatek. You tip your hat to Madison Keys. You feel so good for her. And to see how many different people, and 29 years old, and we know how it is in tennis. The closer you get to 30, you start seeing more and more people hang them up. And we've seen some great things from Sloane Stephens and Coco Gauff and a lot of these girls after Venus and Serena have retired. And Madison Keys has been there, 29 years young. Saw a video of Serena Williams congratulating her. It's like, you never know. You never know when it's your time to be able to break through. She's the second oldest first-time women's winner of the tournament after Li Na won in 2014 at the age of 31. But yes, shout out to Madison Keys, bringing it home for the Americans. Yannick Singer won on the men's side, but we're focusing on the Americans here. So my number one star from over the weekend, purely a gem, truly a badass, Madison Keys. Good on you. Bring it home for Team USA. Next one up, my second star, Harris English. His 5th career PGA Tour victory as he won the Farmers Insurance Open by 1 shot this past Saturday, 1/73 in some rough weather at Torrey Pines. His first victory since becoming a father. And I've said this before, and he's 35 years old. It is different for these athletes. I had this conversation with Steven Souza many years ago in the Rays locker room. I've said it before here, and I'll say it again. As much as these guys put so much pressure on themselves, and it means so much to them to be able to be these professional athletes, when they're a dad, it's completely different. Because when you go home, it doesn't matter if you play well or you play poorly, your dad, and just those little eyes looking up at you, it means all the difference. So you could tell that meant a lot to him. And then Johnny Broom returns for number 1 Auburn, beating number 6 Tennessee. Bruce Pearl has got the Tigers doing their thing. It was a battle Saturday night. 53-51. Auburn, lowest point total of the year. They're 18-1 now, 6-0 in the SEC. But Broom, a 6'10", 240-pound, 5th-year senior and preseason AP All-American, first time since a sprain to his left ankle back on January 11th. So, a couple weeks later, he's back, and they needed him because Tennessee, we know they are no joke. The SEC in men's basketball this year, holy smokes, there are a ton of good teams. Women's basketball too, but just talking about the men here, my God, they are fantastic. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me today. I'm going to get going because I got things I got to do for the rest of the day today. But, man, a big thank you to our guy, Ian Beckles, for joining us, and a big thank you as well for everything that Julien BriseBois does for us to be able to let him, just to be able to chat with us here in the Tampa Bay area. He's just all class. And, again, giving me a couple minutes for my Ryan McDonough story. Can't thank him enough for that. Ian Beckles and I, Wednesday at 3:30. Don't miss that, the Beckles and Recher podcast. That's another reason why you want to like and subscribe on YouTube, because I will be housing it on there too. Tomorrow, we're working on guests. I think Chris Russell is going to join us from D.C., and just never know who else we will chat with to be able to bring him in or her in. You never know, because we're equal opportunities here on the Jay Recher podcast. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, everywhere at Jay Recher. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for adjusting their schedules and being with me today. I'm going to start working on some videos right now. I love you, and I'll see you at noon tomorrow right here on the Jay Recher podcast. I love you all. I'm going. Peace out.